Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I just wanted to share a few words regarding the passage of Quran, which I think is extremely relevant for all of mankind and especially Muslims at this time and age, and something that a passage of the Quran that we all know, but maybe we've never heard it in this light. The passage of the Quran is the 113th chapter, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. And often we hear about the relationship that قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ has with قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. But in sequence, it's come after Surah Ikhlas. And we don't really have in mind the relationship between Surah Ikhlas and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, Surah Falaq. So first and foremost, we should try to understand what does Falaq mean. Falaq is loosely translated and generally translated as daybreak. But Falaq literally means to tear something open. And Allah Ta'ala has assigned this title of his to be Rabbul Falaq, to be the master of tearing things open, or the master of things being torn open. And what's he referring to here is that if you notice the entire universe and the entire world, there's always a course of tearing that's occurring. There's always a cycle of tearing that's occurring, and that cycle of tearing open and another thing coming out of that torn area, that torn place, is the cycle of birth. So you have the plants tearing open the earth and coming out. You have the rain breaking away from the clouds and coming down. And some modern day scholars, we don't have to establish entirely what they say is true, but you have some modern day scholars have linked this concept of falaq to the origin of creation, whereby the scientists are relaying it back to the Big Bang, where it was torn open. So the concept of falaq is a recurring circle of and a recurring cycle of occurrences surrounding us. There's always things being torn open to become. So you see that the day tore away at the night and broke off from the night and became day. It tears open and therefore daybreak. And we can also try to take a psychological reference from this, whereby Allah Ta'ala is highlighting that when the total opposite is present, when the total opposite is there, so for example anxiety, for example distress, for example darkness, for example difficulty, for example restlessness, for example sleeplessness, for example anguish, for example arguments and fighting, from that the total opposite can take birth. And who's the master behind it? Rabbul Falaq. Rabb, we can say the affectionate, the cherishing, the all-sustaining master. Allah is the master. So Allah Ta'ala has highlighted this in قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. And then the first thing we take refuge from is مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ, from the evil of all that He has created. In قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, we are seeking protection in our material life from the material dangers surrounding us. That could be the snake, that could be a scorpion, that could be the weather, that could be circumstances. So min sharri ma khalaq, it could be that this is referring to. And the unique thing in this surah is that there's 4 things that we seek protection from. Min sharri ma khalaq, number 1, min sharri ghasiqin idha waqab, number 2, min sharri nafathati fil uqad, number 3, and min sharri hasidin idha hasad, number 4. Please try to internalize this lesson today, because we read this surah all the time, and let's try to internalize the meanings of this surah. So Allah Ta'ala said min sharri ma khalaq. So we see that the sequence of the dangers that Allah Ta'ala is highlighting is going from general to specific. So it goes from the entire creation, min sharri ma khalaq, to one notch down in specification and going to وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ, that the night time. from the evil of the night time when it settles, the darkness of the night when it settles. And then you speak about magic and black magic and sorcery. وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. There are many evils happening in the darkness of the night, but of them one specific evil is this. And min sharri nafathat is a plural, and even more specific to that, he says وَمِن حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, and the envy of that person who is envying, when he envies. So that's a singular word. So you can see the gradual sequence of going from general to specific. So Allah Ta'ala highlights here that قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, and the word أعوذ means I am coming into your refuge. Sometimes we note that it means, we translate it as I seek your refuge. But if that means I seek your refuge, if أعوذ means I seek your refuge, then what does أستعيذ mean? Because أستعيذ means to seek refuge. Here we're not seeking refuge. Here we are coming into refuge. There's a difference. There's one thing asking for refuge and one thing's running into refuge. So we are running into the refuge, the security, the safety, the tender hands of the master of birth. The birth of water from the clouds, the birth of rain from the clouds, the birth of plants from earth, the birth of the child from the mother, and the birth of day from night, and continuous examples of things tearing out of other things, and this continuously happening. So what link can we make with قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ is that the unique name of Allah Ta'ala mentioned in Surah Ikhlas is As-Samad. And the general gist of As-Samad is that Allah needs no one, independent of all, but all are dependent upon Him. So Allah Ta'ala, As-Samad basically means when all things besides Allah need Him, and He needs nothing. He needs nothing besides Himself. So the practical application and the immediate practice of this name of Allah Ta'ala is in the next surah. That I recognize that I can't take refuge in anybody besides Allah Ta'ala. I can't take protection from all these factors of the world, circumstantial, specific creations, other than into the master of the creator of birth. Last thing I want you to note is that the second thing that we are taking refuge from is وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. And Allah Ta'ala is saying, take refuge in Allah from the darkness of the night when it settles. So what ulama have deducted from here, that he's talking about all those evils or all those dilemmas which are circumstantial, which we can connect to a circumstance, to a situation, to a time in the day, to a time in the year, to a time in the month, in the time in our lives. So especially this coronavirus and COVID-19, it's a circumstance, it's a circumstantial issue. And with this circumstance, many ill repercussions, material and spiritual, could be a follow-up. And due to that reality, it's a reality, my respected listeners, due to that reality, it's incumbent upon us that we take these surahs into our practice. So my humble request to everybody is to practice the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he would read this surah, Surah Ikhlas and Surah Nas, these three surahs after every salah. We should read it after every salah and take refuge in Allah. Take it. We need Allah's protection from all these unseen, invisible factors, circumstantial factors, people who are intentionally out there to hurt you, people who can't control their emotions in terms of jealousy, to protect ourselves from them. So much protection we need, and as fragile human beings, vulnerable entities, vulnerable creations of Allah Ta'ala, is in our humility to highlight the As-Samad title of Allah Ta'ala by taking refuge in Allah Ta'ala. So my respected listeners and elders, practice this surah after every salah. Practice قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. And if you can't do that, then at least before we go to sleep. May Allah Ta'ala bless me and you to take these surahs into our practice. Inshallah. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.